I'm trying.
Okay. I don't know why I just got a message that said the recording is in progress.
Oh, I've started it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm doing life coaching and well-being coaching and trying to get into that. And my emphasis is helping people do better habits, maintaining good habits and things like that. And also helping people realize their big dreams. You know, if they want to write a book or start a business, I help them with that. So anyway, why don't we start with introductions, and as people come in, we'll have them introduce themselves. So Pam, you want to introduce yourself, and what we'd like for you to do is tell us where you live and what has been the hardest challenge this past year for you.
Ooh, that's a tough question. So I live in Littleton and I work with Jerry. We are Pilates teachers and more, but mostly in Pilates. The biggest challenge for me this year, there's a couple. I lost my dad, and so the family dynamics have been tough since then. So adjusting to that. And the second hardest is changing my job. And I'm proud to say that I've made some steps toward leaving a not so good situation anymore and moving into a different situation. So I'm not one to, it takes a lot for me to change. And so I'm starting that process and moving forward.
I think you would love my book, I See Your Dream Job, because that's what a lot of people have found helpful when they're doing career changes.
Oh, great. Sounds very timely.
Yeah. Well, when Mary Pat comes in, we'll have her introduce herself. Oh, wait. No, she's turned off everything. But anyway, so just so you know, Pam, I met Sue at Mile High Church many years ago, probably like 20 years ago. And she's come a long way since then, written several books since then. And so she's also, yes, there they are. And you can buy her books on her website, which her website is careerintuitive.org, which I will.
Or even the easiest thing, and the easiest thing is just SueFrederick.com, because that takes you to the same place.
Okay.
Okay, Frederick.com. Okay. Mary Pat. Hello.
Hi there.
Hey, Mary Pat.
Mary Pat, you're back.
Can you
I'm back.
introduce yourself?
The light, the land is, I mean, the thunderstorm is not playing well with us. But we're appreciative of the rain.
Absolutely. It's been dry.
So hi, I'm Mary Pat. I'm up here in Evergreen, Colorado. The biggest challenge I have had in the last year is I am recovering from a shattered wrist, and it is taking forever.
And yeah, that's big. You know, breaking a bone or shattering a bone is a really intense healing journey. Is it is it your right hand? Are you right-handed?
It is my right hand. I am dominant in the right hand.
Wow.
Yeah.
My heart goes out to you, baby girl.
Thank you.
So anyway, I was just introducing Sue, and then we can have her give her talk. But she's written 5 books, as you can see in the back, and you can go to her website, SueFrederick.com. She also has a podcast, which I noticed. I'm going to listen to some of them, Mystical Conversations, on her website, along with a blog. So tonight she's going to talk about shifting our energy and using intuition, purpose, and wisdom to heal and live our best lives. So Sue, take it away.
All right. So, you know, when people ask me, you know, how do I become more intuitive, or like, for example, there's somebody here who's in the middle of changing jobs, and there's, you know, someone who lost their beloved dad, and then someone who's trying to heal. All of these things can be enhanced with tapping into our inner guidance, our intuition, our divine purpose. And we can also just call that tapping into our divinity. And I don't mean anything religious by that, but I believe that we are divine beings, spirits living in a physical world, and that we have to live with awareness of the physical and the divine or the invisible world in order to navigate it successfully, whether we're navigating career and using our intuition, or navigating grief and listening to our heart, and even connecting to our departed loved ones. We are all capable of opening our hearts and connecting to that higher wisdom. So what I have learned in my journey, because I grew up very intuitive, I was the kid who would come to the breakfast table and say, I had a dream that we were driving down Old Shell Road, and I would perfectly describe a car accident down to who was driving the car, whose car was it, what road we were on, and what truck we hit. And my family would argue with me and say, well, people don't dream in color, because that's what people believed in the 50s. And so they would kind of argue with me about this. And then later that day, coming home from school, we'd be about to go home, and Denise was driving, and she'd say, oh, I have a headache. Gwen, can you drive? And then there would be a detour, and we'd end up on Old Shell Road, and still the brain wasn't clicking into the dream because I had a long high school day. And then all of a sudden, the green truck that I had described with the padlock doors pulls up in front of us, and I'm yelling from the back seat, stop, don't hit it, it's my dream, you know. And so Gwen listened to me, and she put on her brakes, and then there was a big pile up ahead of us, and if we hadn't stopped, you know, earlier, we would have hit that truck. So those experiences for me growing up made me question constantly, you know, what is that? Like, what is intuition? I didn't even have those words for it. It was just like, why are my dreams like this, you know? And why am I getting a knowingness and knowing things? And so I could say that I tried to put it aside. I tried to be normal. I tried to develop my left brain logical part in order to fit in, because our culture tells us, you know, hey, it's all about being logical and smart and left brain here in order to be successful. And so I would try that. And I wasn't that good at it in my 20s. And so I was, you know, kind of struggling to find my way. And then I was a mountaineering instructor because I could coach people. And back in the 70s, you know, we were coaching people in Outward Bound to overcome their fears and taking them on these amazing six-week backpacking trips and teaching them rock climbing and climbing 14ers. And that was a great experience in empowering people to overcome fear. But then my beautiful husband, I was 28, he was 32, I think, mountain climber, mountaineering instructor. He was suddenly diagnosed with colon cancer and given 2 weeks to live. And we went on a year-long healing journey. Now, granted, this was 1978, 79. So it was nowadays, if they had caught it early, he would still be alive. But back then, there were not even such a thing as colonoscopies. So together, we went on this spiritual journey of trying conventional and alternative healing treatments. And the most profound was when we visited a Native American healer in South Dakota, or maybe it was North Dakota, I can't remember, but he was pretty famous. His name was Chief Fool's Crow. And he took us on a mystical journey. And he took Paul, he told Paul he would be traveling with him and helping him cross over when the time came. and teaching him Lakota in his dreams. And that's the language of the Sioux. And he told me, hey, you agreed to this. You signed up for this because you needed to grow, and you and Paul made an agreement that you would go through this together, Paul for his spiritual growth purposes and you for yours. So quit crying about it and fighting it and resisting it. And he pretty much said, grow up, girl, he's going to die in a month. And we didn't think that. We had gone there for healing. We thought he was doing pretty good. And anyway, so as you can imagine, a month went by and Paul completely deteriorated. And the doctors were actually amazed he had lived a year. And on the day of his departure, the beautiful day of July 13th, which now is my sacred day, he took his last breath in my arms, and I saw his beautiful spirit, his luminous spirit, leave his body with a final peaceful breath and move out the window to play in the Boulder foothills, the beautiful green foothills. And that was the greatest gift that has ever been given to me, because from that moment on, I knew without any doubt that we are souls here. We are souls temporarily inhabiting physical bodies, and that we have to live as if we remember that, because that way we do not feel trapped and limited by the physical circumstances happening in our lives. So for example, if you hate your job and you need to change careers, and everyone says, oh, you can't, the economy, this, that, oh, you'll never make as much money, oh, blah, blah, blah. That's all the left brain logic stuff. Now, if you meditate, if you quiet your mind, if you start leaning into your inner knowingness, your right brain knowingness that pours through you when your mind is quiet and your heart is open, which I believe comes from spiritual practice or meditation. When you lean into that and listen, there is always divine guidance coming to you going, well, you know, you have that friend who launched that business and you wanted to launch a business like that. Why don't you go have coffee with her and find out how it works and how it's going? And all of this little soul nudges will be pouring through you.
Zoom meeting.
And you have to, I think somebody needs to mute. And you have to trust that inner knowingness. You have to trust that inner wisdom that's pouring through you, because it's going to give you a different opinion about what to do. And I can guarantee you, after following this for many years, that that inner voice is your path to happiness, success, and fulfillment. And that your logic mind may argue with it and say, oh, that's not practical. But I can guarantee you, if your logic mind says that, then it's even more important that you do it, that you take that leap. And my book, I See Your Dream Job, is all about that. So that book will really help you with career. Now with grief, the same thing happens. It's the same sort of principle that my client base, I've been working with clients for 20 years, and they started primarily as career reinventors. And I would use the techniques I write about in I See Your Dream Job: numerology, meditation, intuition, all of that knowingness. And then what I came to is St. Martin's Press wanted me to do a book about grief, and that's my book, Bridges to Heaven. And the truth is, my real spiritual teacher has always been grief, because when Paul died when I was 29, it's what opened me up to the reality of the invisible world, the divine realms. And so, after that, my best girlfriend, Chrissy, died a year later of leukemia. And that's an amazing intuitive story I could tell you sometime. And then my dad died pretty soon after that. And my best friend, Marvin, by the time I was 35, I had lost almost everyone who was important to me. And that put me in a journey of discovery, of beginning to believe almost more in the invisible realms and the divine realms than in the physical realms. Because my dad, Paul, Chrissy, Marv, they were all showing up. Not only were they showing up in my dreams to tell me things, like Paul said, you need to go to journalism school, in a dream. And I woke up the next day and enrolled in journalism school at University of Colorado and launched a 20-year-long journalism career, which really helped me survive here, getting my feet on the ground. And then Chrissy came through with a lot of guidance about relationships, because she and I had always struggled to find love and relationships. And when she had died, she was only 30 and she had never found lasting love. And we had really commiserated about that. So she came back to warn me about some bad choices I was making with relationships, and her vivid visitations and guidance was so right on, and I'll never forget it. And then, you know, all my life now I've been guided by these beautiful departed souls who I've loved so deeply. So most of my clients these days, I would say about 25% of them are career reinventors, and we use all those sacred techniques. But I would say 75% are grieving people, in particular, grieving spouses and grieving parents who have lost children. And working with them has been the greatest blessing of my life, because you just don't know, you can't imagine the devastation of losing a child. I hope none of you know that personally, because it's a devastating loss. But I've been so blessed that they have come to me. It started with one grieving mom in Boulder years ago, like 12 years ago, I think, who came to me when her young son had overdosed. And we worked and we connected her to talk to her son. We looked at his path through numerology, and he came through so loud and clear that she was able to connect and write about what he was saying to her. The difference between what I'm talking about and just pure mediumship is I teach the grieving person to connect to their departed. But I will say that I also get a connection from that spirit, so I can help nudge the parent, you know, to connect. And so I'm also getting the download. And nowadays, the way I work is before the session even begins. Like this morning, I had a client whose 24-year-old son had chosen to intentionally exit his life. We don't say commit suicide, because commit is a word like commit sin or commit crime. And that those words devastate parents who've lost children that way. So they are trying to change the description to chose to intentionally leave early. So then those beautiful moms who come to me, they call themselves, a lot of them are in a group that we get together called the woo-woo moms, because they say they were left brain, logical, career moms, very practical. And then they lost a child, and suddenly they started seeing their son come and talk to them. And they had to decide either they had gone crazy or they had to start trying to understand what was happening and believing in woo-woo things. And so it's been a great journey for them of opening up to their spirituality and believing in the divine realms. So this morning I was working with one of those moms, and before the session began, you know, I have his birth path from numerology, and I connected to him, and he had a lot to say to his mom. So I just kind of automatic writing it down. Like I'll say, please, divine guides, help me connect to this beautiful soul who wants to talk to his mom. And then I'll connect and I'll say, all right, Morgan, tell me what you have to say to your mom. And I just start writing without thinking about it, without editing it. And all these messages come through. And you can all do that too. This is what I'm trying to say. This is part of our human experience here, that we can connect beyond the physical when we are open to it, when we quiet the mind, when we open the heart. And whatever kind of transition you may be in personally, if you can do a little mind quieting meditation, if you can do a little automatic writing after that meditation, you can get guidance from your departed loved one. Or if you're in a career reinvention cycle, you can get guidance from either your higher self, your God consciousness, whatever words you want to put to it, to understand your next step. And I can say I'm 70 years old, and I have had 70 years of proof in my life that the divine is even more real than this physical world. And I'm not a crazy person. I don't live in a I'm not in a padded cell. I'm functional. And all I can say is that this invisible world is here to help you. It's a beautiful, loving universe run by a loving consciousness that we live in. And the more we open to it, embrace it, and access it, the more we have a fulfilled, happy, and meaningful life. And we aren't devastated. And yes, of course, we grieve and we feel that pain, but our lives don't stop when we lose a loved one, because we are able to know that they continue and that they are watching us and they have something to say to us. And we eventually decide that we're going to live in a way that makes them proud, makes them happy. So I just want to summarize about how our key to success in this very left brain practical world is to open up to divine wisdom that lives in all of us, lives in our hearts, and is here to help us and to guide us to our happiness and our success. And one of the key other tricks, other than meditation, to being able to access it is what I call becoming pure of heart. And many of you remember, growing up, I grew up Catholic, and we would study the Beatitudes. And my favorite one was always, blessed are the pure of heart, as they will see God. And I'm almost a unity minister. And what I can say is that unity believes that the Bible is not meant to be taken literally, that it's a story of a beautiful, enlightened teacher, Jesus, and how he came to teach us to be compassionate. And that divine perspective that he brought can still serve us today, even if we don't believe in traditional Christian dogma. So when you think of blessed are the pure of heart, as they will see God, another way to look at that is blessed are the pure of heart, because then we can experience the divine in our everyday physical realities. And the way we become pure of heart is by focusing more on love, on giving compassion, on things like quieting the mind through spiritual practice and pouring compassionate love to everyone in our circle, no matter if they've wounded us or hurt us, realizing that we are the divine source of love and sending that love out. Another thing is what I call the great heartbreak grief is the sure path to pure-heartedness if we don't stop growing, if we keep seeking answers, if we keep being open-minded, if we keep agreeing to acknowledge our experiences as real. That puts us on a pure heart path, because the opposite of a pure heart is a cynical, angry, shut down heart. And we all have moments like that. I mean, geez, if you'd met me after I'd lost Paul and Chrissy and Marv and everybody, I had many years in my 30s where I was very angry at the world, and angry. It seemed very unfair that when all my friends were having kids and getting married, I was losing my soulmate to cancer. And all of us have those moments where we say, hey, this isn't fair, you know, everybody else is happy. But if we pull back for the long view of our soul's journey and we really embrace, wow, what if I really believe that there's a purpose to all this, that I am here to grow and evolve, and that my ultimate purpose is to love more, love better, and pour compassion out to others through my work and through my life and relationships. Now we're living with a pure heart. So on that note, I just want to open it up to questions, because I've probably triggered a lot of ideas here that you guys might want to talk about, ask me about, or whatever. So does anybody have a question? I can't hear anybody.
When did you write your first book, Sue?
Let's see. Well, my very first book I wrote in, I think it was 1998, 99, and it was called A Mother's Guide to Raising Healthy Children. And then in 2002, I think I wrote my two other books that besides these, called Brilliant Day and Dancing at Your Desk. And those were about, you know, seeing your life differently and reinventing your career. And then in 2008, well, St. Martin's Press approached me in 2007 to write I See a Dream Job, because they had seen the work I was doing and they wanted me to write a book about it, which was a great blessing. And so I wrote that book, came out, I See a Dream Job, I think in 2008. And then that was successful. So we did I See Your Soulmate with St. Martin's Press. But my true love book is Bridges to Heaven, True Stories of Loved Ones on the Other Side. And that came out in 2012, I believe. And that's when I was able to be teaching grief shifting workshops all around the country and bringing in all these, I mean, I didn't ask grieving parents to come. I didn't tell them I loved working with their children on the other side, but they knew it. I know they knew it because out of 50 people, you know, most of them would be grieving parents. And so I knew their kids had brought them to me from the other side. And the really cool thing is that living here in Phoenix, Arizona, I was a little worried because this is a very conservative town down here. I mean, it's nothing like Boulder, right? So we got down here and I was, you know, thinking, gosh, I know Jean is here to heal, you know, and I'm involved at Unity of Phoenix, and that's all great, but I'm not sure where my people are here. And then one of my mom clients introduced me to this amazing woman who literally lives 10 minutes from me, who started a group called helpingparentsheal.org. You can visit that website. And she lost 2 children. And when she lost her second child, she launched this nonprofit organization to help grieving parents explore new ideas about where their children are and how to connect to them. And it's an amazing group. And they meet here like 10 minutes from me. And they're a huge, amazing group. And they're all my best friends now. And it's just been such a blessing. So I was brought here for lots of reasons beyond Jean's healing. So I'm just so grateful for the divine order of all that.
Nice.
It's awesome.
Good. Is there any other questions or?
So I'd like to ask, was it Mary Pat who is grieving her dad? Who was it?
No, that's Pam.
That's me.
Pam, have you had any visits or signs from your dad?
I've had a dream, but I can't remember what happened, but it was pretty vivid.
Mm-hmm.
Another time I've had, I think it was a hawk that stayed a little longer than you would expect a hawk to stay put. you
That's
know.
great. Yeah.
And with my mom, the day that she died, I came home and there was a fox in my yard, and it stayed longer than a fox normally would, you know.
Mhm.
And then it limped away with its right paw, not bearing weight on it.
Mhm.
And that my mother had just had surgery on her right hand.
Mm.
So there's been times where I've thought, you know. And about a week before my dad passed, there was a fox in my dad's yard.
Mm.
And because I had such a strong connection to the fox the first time, you know,
Mhm.
I felt like it was like my mom, you know, saying that she was going to be there
Yeah.
for when my dad. So that was pretty intense. But the dream it wasn't pleasant, but it wasn't like he was angry or anything.
Mhm.
But it wasn't like he was a reassuring presence. There was some conflict in the dream, you know.
Did the dream feel like it had a a shimmery, out of the ordinary feeling to it?
It didn't, but it did feel like time was stopped for a little while, and like there was more of a telepathy going on than a conversation, you know. So there's definitely a difference between that dream and like a
Right.
regular dream
Right.
that seems to carry on at regular speed.
Mhm. Yeah.
Things kind of slow down when I'm supposed to pay attention, I guess.
So one thing you can do is you can, for example, tonight before you go to bed, make sure you have a notebook and a pen by the bed and say to your dad, like just sit up and talk to him for a minute and say, you know, Dad, I really need some kind of a sign, or I need to have a conversation with you. Can you come to me tonight in my dreams and make it vivid so that I remember it when I wake up? And then even if you wake up at 3 a.m, you know, instantly pull out that notebook and write down your impressions, because it'll fade. Like the minute you wake up in the morning, you'll hardly be able to get it back. But that's a really good way to sort of signal to your higher self that you are willing and open to receive those kinds of dream connections. And those requests are always answered. And I have to tell you a story right now that you're going to love. This is from one of my woo-woo moms. These woo-woo moms, I tell you, if you're ever depressed, you need to come to our gatherings, because here's some of the stories that they share. This is so amazing. So you see this truck. One of my moms, she lost her 19-year-old son, Jake, suddenly. And I've been working with her. I love her so much. And we've had such connections with Jake. And so she was telling me the story. She reached out by text and said, Sue, you'll never believe this. It was the year, and they call it the angelversary, the anniversary of their child's crossing over. She said it was the year angelversary of Jake's departure. And I went to the graveyard and put flowers and stayed there and meditated and cried and connected. And I told him, I said, Jake, I'm having a really hard day. If there's any way you could give me a powerful sign, I would really appreciate it. I just always need to be reminded that you're still with me. And she was crying, and she got in her car, and then she got on the freeway to head home. And she said she was crying so much, she kind of even didn't realize it at first. And then she went, Jake, that truck, can you read that? It says Jake Transportation. And it pulled up right in front of her. I've never even seen a truck that looks like that before. Have you guys? She said she was so blown away by that sign, you know. And what I want to say to all of you is that the minute you have doubt or need of a higher connection, just ask for it. Just, you know, say, I'm really having a tough day. I need something to remind me, something to lift me up. and then pay attention, because a Jake truck might pull out right in front of you. Could I tell you a
That's a great-
story about my dad when he crossed over? Because I think you might like it. Is that okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
So my dad was my person growing up, because my mom and I, my soul's story about it is that I chose a mom who couldn't love me, because I was trying to learn to find divine love and pour it through, rather than having somebody supply it to me as a kid. And so I chose a mom who couldn't love me. And so the person I went to as a child for comfort was my dad. And even though he was a very strong engineer, very powerful left brain logic guy, you know, he fought in World War II. He was kind of fascinated by my dreams and fascinated by the idea of spirit and all of that. And so he was so sweet. Like in the 60s in Mobile, Alabama, he would take me to the library to try to find books on ghosts and on dreams and all this. So sweet. And so as I, you know, got older, he was always the person. Like when Paul, my husband, died, it was my dad with me, you know, my dad on the phone, my dad loving me. And so when he died a few years later, you know, by that time, I always told people I had a PhD in loss. You know, like if somebody was dying, I was like, okay, I'll help you, you know, however you need to go, I'll help you. I'm not going to try to hold on to you, I've learned. And so my dad had lung cancer and he was in the hospital, and it was a quick diagnosis. He had been diagnosed and suddenly like he was tubing quickly. And I knew he was dying. My soul knew. And my family, the rest of my siblings and my mom had never been around any kind of real grief and loss. And they were all about, oh, he's going to heal this. Don't worry. We're going to keep getting him to have radiation. And so there was a fight in our family about putting on the DNR orders, do not resuscitate. And they wouldn't put those orders on his charts, which meant that if my dad, dying of lung cancer, had a heart attack, they were going to rush in the room and do CPR. So on this day that I kind of knew my dad was going to die, I wanted to be with him. He was in a coma. And my family said, no, it's your turn to take the kids home, because we all had young kids, all of us siblings, you know, take the kids home to grandma's house and babysit for the afternoon, because it's our turn to be here without the kids. So I was very grumpy about that. And I got all those toddlers in the car and drove them home to grandma's house and got them down for a nap. And then I sat to meditate, because I've been meditating since I was taught transcendental meditation in the 70s, which is an awesome way to start your meditation practice. And so I sat down to meditate, and, you know, I'm quieting my mind with mantra. And literally within 2 minutes, my father shows up so vividly in front of me in my meditation that I thought he was real. And he was young and half healthy and happy and joking around. And he was making me laugh. Like when he was young, we'd call him the clown. We'd say, Dad, you should have gone to clown school, you know, because he just loved to joke around and make us laugh. And here he was in front of me like that again, and joking around and making me laugh. And so in my meditation, I was like, Dad, you goof, what are you doing here? And then I was like, Dad, what are you doing here? And I realized, wow, he was really here. So I picked up the phone and called the hospital. And my brother Jim answered, and I said, Dad just appeared to me. What's going on? And Jim said, Dad had a heart attack and it's chaos in here. They're trying to give him CPR. And I said, no, he's not there. He's not in that body. He's not in that chaos. He is already free. And he came to show me that he was already healthy, happy, and flying around visiting people. And my brother Jim, very conservative Southern Catholic, went, wow, I think Dad was with you because he's not here. And that was a great moment of recognition that the soul travels and the soul is not even caught up in the body in those final moments of suffering. So I hope that's a comfort to anyone who might have seen their loved ones struggle.
Thank you for that, Sue. And I just want to mention something, because Pam, I guess more recently, I've been connecting with 4 of my family members that have crossed and transitioned. And the fox in my yard is my mom reaching out to me. We had a favorite store when I was growing up. She died when I was 15. I had just turned 15. And the foxy lady. So my mom was always referred to as the foxy lady.
Right.
And this was just recent, like this last week. And then my baby sister, who I've been, reaching out to, if you would. And hers is the butterfly. And just yesterday and the day before, the butterflies that have been surrounding me have just been like so magical.
Yeah.
And it's just been so. I just wanted to reiterate, Pam, that thank you for sharing your story, and with Dad and
Yeah,
and
well, that's
Mom.
beautiful. I'm so glad that you're open to those signs, that's wonderful.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing, I think, Sue, when you really do keep a real open mind and
Yeah.
know that we are souls. We
Right.
really are. And
Right.
we're all connected.
We are, we're all part of each other's soul posse, and we're all here trying to shift consciousness and grow and evolve. And it's been intense here on this planet the last few years, and I think it's really about consciousness accelerating and shifting. And that's why it's been so crazy because the growth has accelerated for everyone. And the other thing I believe is that you can't collectively, we have to grow and evolve together. And so these last few years, with all this ugliness being brought to the surface and hatred and anger and everything, that had to come to the surface because it had been hidden, and nothing can be healed until it's revealed, right? So all of this stuff that's come up has actually been a part of the healing. You can think of it as when your body is sick or something, you have to have a fever, you've got to burn it up. You've just got to get it out of your system. And so our collective consciousness has kind of had a fever, in order to move all of this negativity out of us. But that's how I think it's going in the right direction, even if it looks kind of crazy.
I love it. I love it. Sue, are you familiar with death cafes?
Oh, that's so funny that you asked me that, because for my internship, my mentor has tasked me with running death cafes and trying to get all the Unity churches across the country to get involved in this with us. So we've been doing them once a month online, and we're about to launch our next one with a bigger rollout. We're trying to get Unity churches to send their people to participate with us. And I can, if you want to email me, I can send you the info and the link, to sign up for our next one in August.
Yeah, they're fascinating. I've been going, I started back in, I think, 2013, 2012, and then I facilitated one here in Evergreen in 2019, and then just attended two. I attended one Sunday.
Wow.
Sunday from Denver. Yeah.
Well, I'm curious, in those death cafes,
What are they?
What are they?
Do you want to explain, or I can explain?
Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
You can, Sue.
Well, this is something I have actually tried to get my arms around, because what I've learned is that in the death cafe, we are not supposed to be talking about our beliefs about death. Like, I'm not supposed to talk about departed loved ones. Instead, we're supposed to let people come in and share their feelings about death. And I'm a facilitator. So as a facilitator, all I do is keep asking the questions that help them talk about their experiences. But we have to make sure that it's non-dogmatic, non-judgmental, non-religious, you know, like a very open format, so that the goal is that people in our culture start being more comfortable with death and with even just talking about it. And our culture is like, death is an obscene word, you know? So the whole point is to try to get people to say, oh yeah, I go to a death cafe, you know, and we talk about death, and it doesn't feel morbid, or it doesn't feel, you know, strange. But for me personally, you can imagine how hard it is to be sitting in these and listen to people's story. And I can even feel their departed loved one in there with them. And I just have to go, oh, that's wonderful, and ask the right questions. And I can't share, but it's a good discipline for me.
Oh, geez.
Interesting, because I find they're all different, you know, depending upon where they're at. And I did go to a live one last month down in Lakewood, Colorado. It was where there were just a small group of us. But and then the last two I went to on Zoom. But they're all different, you know, in terms of what I see a death cafe as is, it's not a support group. You have to just really let folks know that this isn't a support group. This is not a place to come for counseling.
Right.
It's basically, we come together to become more comfortable
Right.
in surrounding ourselves with those who can speak to about death and experiences
Right.
and so forth and so on. I'm actually attending one tomorrow, and that's held in San Francisco, a psychedelic death cafe.
Wow.
Which is a whole nother story.
Oh, I
But
want to
hey.
know. I want to know about that one.
But anyway, this one I was on not too long ago, last month, we actually had somebody from, not from Hungary, from not Czechoslovakia, what country am I thinking of? Anyway, from overseas.
Mm-hmm.
And come to find out, she travels to different death cafes online to instigate, I don't want to say instigate trouble, but kind of,
Really?
yeah.
How so? Tell me how.
Is this being recorded, Beth?
You know what? We can finish the recording. So let
It's
me.
okay.
No,
But
let me just sign out the recording. Thank you, everyone. It's been a pleasure. Over and out.